Morning all, and welcome to our chat with our intrepid crew who are currently over in the Azores. I'll let them give the exact location in a second. Having just completed the first leg of the Azores and back race, where they won class and a first overall currently. It is currently, isn't it? Because there's a return leg to add to it.
Absolutely, yes. So the way they work it is that it's a race of two halves, and we won the first half of the race effectively, and then our corrected time and the corrected time from the second leg will be aggregated, will be added together, and then who has the shortest corrected time will be the winner. So that's we're only halfway through.
Brilliant. And then how does it feel to have completed leg one?
Sort of a combination of relief and excitement, really, because we had a feeling that we were doing pretty well in the race, and so we were crunching all sorts of numbers to see. We're one of the slower boats in this race, and so the boat that was ultimately second or third, I can't remember which, finished way ahead of us. Maybe a day ahead. Something like that. And so we were crunching the numbers to try and work out whether we had a chance of beating them, and I think it came in at something like 3 in the morning. If we finished by 2:30 or 3 in the morning, then we would beat them and therefore win overall. And I think we finished before 12, didn't we? So
it evolved. As about a day and a half out, we thought we probably weren't on for the win, and it was almost impossible to do. And then things changed a bit. I think what happened, the fast boat had a really slow finish to the leg, which is quite often the case. You come around the island and you run out of wind, and that just gave us the opportunity. And then the next time we did the numbers, it looked a lot more favourable. So we had a long time thinking that all we had to do was sail in and we'd beat and we do it. But that was playing on our minds quite a lot.
Yeah,
we were already going crazy, and that sent us more crazy.
And also there's this thing of you are relatively tired because and so it is the brain working in its full capacity, and are your numbers actually correct? So we were slightly we were optimistic, but we weren't sure at all until we actually got in.
It's never till it's down on paper, because the amount of times we've been out sailing and it's kind of you're checking when the boat ahead of you goes across the line, it's counting down it's seconds in that case rather than hours. And
and then work out what the percentage difference should be and apply it to the number of seconds that the difference the gap was. And but no, all good fun though. And overall a great first leg, quite easy sailing in terms of it was mostly behind all the way. We had the spinnaker up pretty much for 5 days solid, maybe more, and we saw some quite big winds and some quite big seas, but nothing that wasn't it wasn't manageable. So no, I think in a way we were very lucky. The thought of sort of crashing into a gale all the way back to Falmouth is quite worrying, but it looks like it's not going to happen because of the forecast. So, but
that's very positive. And noting all the things when you left in Falmouth on the 3rd of June, I think it was. Has it met your expectations? Has this is I think this is the longest offshore trip you've done. So has it met with expectation?
I think definitely the longest trip we've done by far. So our expectations weren't particularly clear, but going into it, it was great to get to the start line. There's a load of work went into getting to Falmouth. And when we set off, we knew we had a nice forecast, the best forecast that we would hope for, and we just settled into it. So I'm not sure what our expectations were, but we were certainly, when we got towards the end of leg one, we felt very grateful for the conditions we'd had and the time we'd had, and often, I mean, one of my expectations is not to. Quite often you don't enjoy the sailing as it happens, but as soon as you finish, get ashore, normally it comes back, and you do question yourself when you're out there why you're doing this. But oddly, on this trip, a lot of the time, felt like I wanted to be there.
Yeah, absolutely, and
that's brilliant.
So spinnaker up pretty big winds, the boat surfing down waves and things. I mean, it was quite exhilarating, but it wasn't just a little burst like you'd have on an inshore race. For a start, the seas are huge in comparison, and the surf lasts a lot longer. But it wasn't just a short burst; it was hour after hour after hour, and you know, Pete and I switching over, having to hand steer because it was breezy, and just switching over, and then you do your next hour and a half, yeah. So it's just that kind of lovely sailing that went on hour after hour. So it was really, really, really good.
Sort of champagne sailing, but I mean, you were very lucky with the weather, I think, because it was literally almost perfect all the way down, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think one of the nice things with the weather is we had good updates. You know, we had good connection for weather data when we were at sea. So we knew what was coming next. So when the conditions changed, we kind of knew how long it was going to last for and how long until we got to the new conditions. So I mean, I think the first half of the day was quite relaxed, quite nice sailing, and then the wind just ramped up, and we got to the point where I think we probably over 24 hours where we were just handing the steering wheel over, and there was no real opportunity to put the autopilot on and do stuff. But no, we kind of knew that was conditions were going to change again, and we didn't have to do it for much longer, and that was quite nice.
And how did the good ship Haven K-J Enigma all cope with it? Was she all right all the way down there?
Absolutely superb. Yeah, I mean, she loves it when the kite's up, and if there's a bit of a sea running as well, like most boats will act. Even though she's quite heavy, you know, she's nearly 5 tons, she will slide down a wave and what have you. So we were clocking up some pretty good average high speeds. What was our 20-minute average?
I think
that we saw.
9.2 was one I saw, which is good. So that's not. We had lots of high speeds, peaks on waves, but 9.2 20-minute average. So,
wow.
So that's something we hadn't really looked at those sorts of things before, but that was for us. We thought that was.
That's pretty fast. It's pretty fast for a 30-year-old, you know, design. Maybe not so for a super modern surfing boat, but no, for us that was pretty high speed. So yeah, no, I'm really good. And you know, the important point to note there is that it all felt completely under control. It wasn't a case of, oh my God, we're on the edge of disaster here. Not at all. We did sail safe, and you know, the boat just handled it. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's amazing because she's a good boat, but you know, the boat can't get there on its own. How did the crew cope?
Yeah, well, you know, he and I have been sailing together for what, 12, 13 years or something. So we kind of know each other quite well. Although I have to say, we probably know each other a bit better now. Yeah. And that's fine as well.
All that time cooped up in a small space.
Well, at times we didn't see much of each other. Yeah, well,
it's just the changeover, you see. So.
Yeah.
We certainly didn't have long rambling conversations.
No.
But no, we worked well together. We never. A lot of people ask us what routine, you know, what watch pattern were we in, but we didn't have a formalized pattern. We were doing what felt right, and I think because it was just the two of us, and we did keep our communication quite good. It worked. We could adjust things to suit us, and it's fine.
Yeah.
We ended up in quite a short pattern. I think an hour and a half changeovers, which adapted it a bit for some of the conditions sometimes, but that was working well.
Yeah, I know that's partly driven by the fact that if you're hand steering, it's quite windy. You know, with the spinnaker up. To be fair, hour and a half is probably maximum. Particularly when you're quite tired anyway, probably about a maximum you can kind of concentrate for. So, and then you get the next person up who is fresher, not necessarily fresh, but fresher because they've just had a bit of a kip for a while. So yeah, but no, it worked very well, and you know, great teamwork between us, and I think that's kind of, you know, really helps.
What I don't know how this. What was a typical day like out there for you? Was it all fairly standard every day, or were there different days, or what was a sort of fairly typical day?
I mean, obviously very weather dependent, but so because we weren't getting 8 hours sleep overnight. Nothing like it, to be honest. Overnight we're probably getting maximum of about 4 hours, I'd say, Pete, something like that. And then so we try and keep the watch pattern going well into the morning and into, maybe up as far as lunchtime. And then we probably have a little bit of time both on deck, or Pete will be downloading weather data, and so the watch pattern would sort of stop for a little while, and then we pick it up again maybe at 5 in the evening. So that was pretty much it. I mean, we weren't. It's funny talking to some of the other competitors, and I think their experience of this race some of them is quite different to ours. Some of them were talking about cooking nice meals and sitting down together and eating, and I think we were at the other end of the scale, let's say. So our meals were freeze dried, pour the hot water into the packet and mix it up and leave it for a few minutes and then eat it. That was our kind of dinner. Whereas others were maybe having a slightly more comfortable environment around them.
More of a cruising environment.
Well, yeah, and that's great. And this is one of the beauties of this particular race is that it's a huge range of different boats and different types of sailors, and all with one kind of common aim. And it's been fantastic in terms of having got here and met the other crews. The camaraderie and the social aspect of it has been extraordinary, really, and also the welcome we've received here in Ponta Delgado. The yacht club here has provided all sorts of entertainment and social activities for us, and culminating last night in a dinner where we were presented with that.
That's an awesome trophy.
I know. We're slightly worried because it's quite heavy, so but it is awesome.
You're gonna have to put it low down in the boat for the center of gravity, won't you?
Exactly. So no, and that so there are lots of different types of people doing this race, lots of different types of boats, and some very, very fast performance boats and some much more cruisery type boats. But everybody's here doing the same thing, and it's marvelous because of that.
I remember watching the tracker, and there was there was a sort of racing yacht that got in there a few days before everyone else.
Oh, the JPK, the
Super
Big. Yeah,
Super that's the one.
Well, Super Bigu that's an Emoka 60. That's Pip Hare's boat.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of a horizon job. So
yeah, they did 4 days and something, which definitely a record for this race by a long way, I think.
Something else, that one, isn't it? And were there any? What were the biggest highs of the trip down there? Were there sort of moments?
Highs. I think there were a few moments I enjoyed where middle of the night and you're hearing down the waves and you're on and you just have a moment where you think, this is quite cool. How did I come to do this? And that was, for me, that there's sort of little moments like that where nothing major was happening, but it was just little reflections.
And that first sight of land, what was that like?
That was good. We were completely crazy by then.
Yeah, well, that's when we recorded that other video, Paul. And as you can tell, we were getting a bit mad by then.
So suddenly the madness started settling in.
That's right. We're all mad. But no, and of course the old adage: if you see clouds above the island before you see the island, sort of thing, and that held true, didn't it, Pete? And also, the approach to the island. It's an extraordinary place because obviously it's volcanic, and it just sort of rises straight vertically out of the water. Huge cliffs all the way around, really green, dark green vegetation all over the island, and it's quite a spectacular place to sail around. And we sailed around the west end of the island on a fetch, so apparent wind just forward of the beam, and then as we rounded the island, we put the kite up tiny bit too soon, but we kind of pinched around with the kite up and then bore away down towards the finish line, and then the wind dropped, so our actual finish was quite slow, and there's always that slight niggle of doubt. Are we going to get becalmed here and everybody else is going to catch up? But it didn't happen, and we got in, and it was fine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And were there any low points at all? Was there any time when he suddenly sort of in the Pete's already said in the middle of the night they were his happy times? Were there any sort of low times or anything like that?
I think for me, I struggled to sleep on the first 2 nights and days, and so I was just getting gradually more and more tired. And then I had a sleep breakthrough around day 3. And then I managed to get a couple of hours sleep and sort of woke up and felt much better. But the tiredness is a problem, and I think it's worth saying while we're on the subject of sleep. There are quite a few people competing in this race who are single-handed. Now, we may feel that we've achieved something here by sailing to the Azores with 2 people on the boat and getting there quite quickly. But I tell you what, those guys who are doing it single-handed, hats off to them. I just can't even imagine what they go through. So yeah, sorry, I'm wandering off the point slightly, but
No, absolutely.
Amazing,
I mean, it's hard enough with you when you've got. Sorry.
Amazing achievement from their point of view to do what we've done, but with only one person. And actually, I just can't understand how they do it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I think it takes a certain mentality, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you'll be right there. Yeah.
I mean, for me, we had lots of breakages and things go wrong along the way, kite wraps and spinnaker halyards breaking and guys wearing through and everything, but none of those were low points, and everything got resolved quite quickly. But I think about halfway through, we've been going so fast for days, 3-4 days maybe. It felt in my mind that we must be nearly there now, because we've traveled so far, and we've gone through a few little weather systems, and then it was just one run into the end. So it looked, when you look at the road map, it was quite we had one feature left to do, but it was a 2-day long sail in. So I think I had a bit of a low moment there where I got a bit confused about just how long we still had to go. But
and again, it's tiredness, isn't it? It
yeah,
kind of kicks in, and there is this slight disorientation. But yeah, no, I mean, Pete's right. We did have a few issues to deal with. I mean, we on a spinnaker drop, we couldn't get the power out of the spinnaker because of something else that had happened. The lazy guy had come unclipped, so we couldn't do a letterbox drop. But tried to anyway, and it didn't work. And the boat went sideways, tide still full, and the spinnaker halyard snapped about 3 or 4 meters from the top of the spinnaker. So it was already partly let off. So it meant then that we recovered the spinnaker. This guy working very, very hard to pull that thing in. Recovered the spinnaker, no major damage to it, which is brilliant. And then it was a case of, okay, we're now down to our last spinnaker halyard. What we need to protect it. We need to make sure, because if that goes, then basically the race is over for us, because it was such a key sail in the whole thing. And so Pete did a brilliant job in terms of protecting the piece that wears most on the spinnaker halyard, which is where it comes over the shear as it exits the mast, and also where the spectacles are, the stainless rings, where it actually goes off and where the kite goes up to. What do you use for that? Is that Spectra? Or?
Yeah, a bit of Dyneema. Overbraided it. Just we were quite worried that if we lost the other halyard, we would be a bit slow after that. So.
Yeah, that would certainly compromise performance.
And it was one of the things we thought about quite a lot, and had been given some advice on from our previous competitor, which was invaluable, because we're not used to the levels of wear and chafe and stuff on having a spinnaker up. We normally have it up for 20 minutes and then it's straight back down again, whereas we have 3 spinnakers that we would cycle through during the day and then cycle back down depending on the weather. But we had one spinnaker up for 5 days, I think, maybe longer.
That's normally we're taking them up, taking them down after about 2-3 miles.
Yeah, exactly, and so that's the big difference. This whole thing of ropes wearing through due to just little bits of friction on whatever they're running through, and the pole end is a big point of friction. That's the kind of the chafe issue that we had, and that applies at the top of the mast as well as on the guys. Yeah. So, but yeah, nothing we couldn't deal with. Yeah, so all good. And in fact, on the third day, we had a period of light winds where we were just loose reaching under the lightweight kite, which was brilliant. And we thought, actually, we ought to take this opportunity to drop the main and do a bit of maintenance, because the main had been pressed against the spreaders for 2.5 days in high winds. And you could just see, looking up, there was a little bit of wear on the spreader patches. So we dropped the main, pulled off the old spreader patches, put some new ones on, sorted out one other problem with the main, and then popped it back up again. And I think it's that running maintenance thing. You got to kind of just keep on it all the way through.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
if we hadn't have done, sorry, Paul, just saying, if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have actually spotted the other issue, and that could have created a big problem for us later. So part of the luff come out of the luff track, so the bolt broke, pulled out at the top batten, and it's not something we'd seen before, and we hadn't seen it looking up, but having taken the sail down, we could see that, and that required about 40 minutes of work to get that fixed, but that prevented us having a problem later, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, doing all this running maintenance when you're on the go, because it's not like you're standing on a on a pontoon or in the quayside or anything like that. You're on a moving boat that's still going along and still having to do all the tasks that go with it, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Although that was pretty easy, because it was at that point we were down to about 5 or 6 knots apparent wind, so it's all quite stable and easy. But yeah, but we did see some big winds and some big seas. I think on about 4th or 5th evening, I think, maybe it was the 6th. This is the way it goes. 6th evening, let's say. we were running under the small kite, the heavyweight kite, loose reaching, and the boat was charging along. Everything was absolutely fine, and just conscious that the wind was building a little bit, and getting up to maybe 25 knots through, I suppose, and then just starting to push a little bit beyond that, and literally you kind of look around you and think, oh, actually, this sea has really built. Big Atlantic rollers, or swell, I should say, and to a point where once we'd sort of twigged what was going on, we started preparing to do the spinnaker drop, but in the process of preparing, the sea built even more, and to the extent where when you were in the trough of the wave, there was light winds, so the waves were big enough to actually block wind out, certainly at deck level and probably higher up as well. And it's difficult to tell how big that swell was, but we're talking something between 7 and 10 meters, I guess. Not that it was a problem, because it wasn't breaking waves or anything, and of course the peaks are very well spread out. But the sea built very, very quickly, and talking to other competitors, not everybody had that. Other people had squalls coming through. You'll have just a cloud that happens to pass over the top of you, and a 45 knots squall, but it lasts for, catch you out, of course, lasts for maybe a few minutes, and then the rain comes through afterwards, and then light winds again. So you got to keep your wits about you. But that was one experience where you look at it and you think, wow, that sea built extremely quickly. But we dealt with it, got spinnaker down, actually ended up with a number 4 head sail up, and carried on, and it was fine.
And I mean, the course you chose to get down there was pretty much dictated by the good weather conditions you have. I noticed when we were in Falmouth, there was a straight line between Falmouth and the Azores, and the weather pretty much pushed you all the way down that. But when you get to the sort of the end, I suppose choosing which way round the island to go, was that a tricky decision, or was that pretty much made up for you as well?
Yeah, I think we had our ideas about that. We'd heard some pretty terrible horror stories about people getting stuck in the lee of the island. So our approach was to not let that happen, just to go around the windward side of it. So for us, the way the weather worked out, we were always going to go around the western tip, but I think it was a 50-50 for the rest of the boats in the fleet, and it was challenging. There were things encouraging you to go the other way. So about a day out, the eastern side of the island was 10 miles closer than the western side. So that's a draw because you get there quicker, which is nice. But when you're at the eastern side, you've got an extra 5 miles to go to sail up around the back of the island. But we were always going to go west, I think, in the weather. But I also ran the routing, so we can run predictions as to how, given the weather forecast we've got, how quickly we can sail. So I ran the alternative route of going around the other side of the island, and the routing for each route was within 2 minutes. So
that's interesting.
So,
yeah.
So it was a no-brainer to say which is the least risk option, because 2 minutes isn't nearly enough. If it had been 2 hours, you might take the risk. But is it worth explaining about the downloading weather information and what happens to that on board and everything else?
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Yeah, just on this which side of the island to go. We start the race on Tuesday, and as soon as we cross the start line, everyone has to decide whether to go right or go left. And in previous races, it has been a split decision. So yeah, we've got we've got to choose that again, and I think we might not find out which was the right way until a long way up the racetrack. So it is an interesting little quirk of the race, the position of Ponta Delgada on the island. So yeah, but so when we're at sea, when we're away from land, we obviously lose connectivity pretty quick. We can't use our phones in the normal sense. So we've got a Iridium phone and an Iridium Go, which is like a device that will download data through the Iridium satellite network. So it's 12 times slower than dial-up. For those of us that can remember dial-up internet speeds, it's 12 times slower than that. So everything has to be very well metered and very well controlled. So we get our weather as in a text format, which we've got apps on our devices that can then put that onto a map and show us what the weather's doing. But then there's the relationship between the weather and the way we sail the boat and the speed of the boat in different angles. So we've got some routing software which combines those two, and we can play out over time and make predictions, and we can change little things about how we would sail a boat and areas that we want to avoid. And maybe we think we're going to be a bit slower at night or something. We can make little adjustments and do little tests, and that gives us a route. And then the next point from that is sort of matching that up to our experiences on the boat. So what the actual weather is compared to what the forecast is, and what we think is going to happen. It's a strategy sort of decision. So it's a kind of risk-based analysis of weighing up options, and the main thing is, so on the way down we wanted to be to the west would look better, but as long as we were just to the west of our class, the guys we were racing most closely, we were quite happy as a strategy position, and we managed to do that, and we were quite happy with that. But it's very straightforward. The line, we were almost always pointing for Ponta Delgada. It might be, at the moment, it looks like it could end up being a lot more complicated on the way home, which will add some interest.
Yeah. And I think part of it is also that Pete's done an incredible job in getting this technology working, because throughout the fleet, people have had issues with their downloading of weather data. In Falmouth, there was the sponsor of the race, Mailersail, which is a electronics and a communications company. they were around the fleet trying to get everybody's gear working, and Pete's done it all on his own, and a fantastic job of actually getting everything working. It's not just the hardware, but it's very much the interfacing and the software as well. And I mean, I have to say, we could download data, we could download weather data as many times a day as we wanted to, and it always worked. It always worked. We had a slight glitch, didn't we? At one time, and that was around data storage, but apparently because Pete sorted it out. But yeah, it's yeah. So that was a really good tool. But it is just a tool. It's not you know, we don't sail by numbers. It's just a tool. And a good example of that is maybe a day out, maybe even the first day, the routing. The routing that the system was providing was saying we should carry on going further west and further west. But that was based on the fact that something was going to happen in 3 or 4 days' time. And so we discussed it and took a decision to say, actually, we're not going to go as far west as the system's telling us, because who knows, in 4 days' time, that might not happen, because it's just a forecast. So you're hedging your bets all the time. And as Pete said, as long as we were further to the west than our competition, we were still in the favoured position. And that's very much an inshore racing type of approach to it. You know, you don't go to the extreme of the side of the course, because who knows, something might change in the middle. You just have to be slightly further towards what you think is the favoured side than anybody else. So yeah, no, the weather routing stuff was, you know, kind of very much an eye opener for me, and brilliant system, brilliant technology, and it really gives you the data you need to make your decisions, and that's the key point. Not to be followed blindly, but it gives you data to make decisions, which is great.
It is amazing that you can get all that sort of data out there that guides you weather-wise, and yet a phone call is something that is sort of outside the remit, isn't it? It's how did it feel to be sort of? I'm going to go back onto the whole thing about the weather and the route back, but how did it feel to be out of contact with land for so long?
Yeah, it was okay, because I think we were mentally prepared for that, and in fact, we were. I mean, personally, I was counting on a 10-day passage, so to get there after 7.5, we'd kind of beaten the game, really. So yeah, it was fine. It was absolutely fine, because I think we were in that zone of mentally preparing for that. Well, I was anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, being away from your phone, you know, in the sense that we know phones now, it was an absolute blessing. And in fact, when we got here, we wanted to catch up with family and friends, but we didn't go straight to BBC News app and see what was happening in the world. It's been, yeah, that side of it's been delightful, and we've had we would have basic email communications, keeping family up to date with how we're getting on. And it's, you know, we were out for a while. You start to miss your family, and as soon as we get round, we had our video calls. I mean, the data service on the island is incredible. So we could do our calls before we finished the race. You know, see, we could already speak to family and do video calls and stuff. So yeah, but it's nice to be away from it all for a little while. Quite looking forward to that again.
And how did it? I mean, how did it feel crossing that finish line? What was apart from relief? I would have thought there must be other emotions going on.
Yeah, I mean, absolute relief. But you know, it was. Don't forget, it's dark. So we're navigating our way through. We're in a port that we've never been into before. We've been warned about not getting too close to the end of the breakwater, so you're kind of like, oh no, that's something we've got to bear in mind. And then, you know, it's a scrabble, because we're dropping sails. There was a rib that came out to meet us, which was lovely, because you know, just to point where to go. So sails down, quite busy, fenders, warps, and everything else. And then finally, boat tied up, and then we could kind of go, oh, brilliant, we're here. Fantastic. Yeah. And that's then the sense of elation and relief. And then
so it wasn't until you were moored up on the pontoon that it could sort of the celebration start. Yeah,
exactly. And then it was a case of, right, what do we do now? And the overwhelming thought was, let's go and get a beer. So we did.
Yeah.
And yeah.
After folding the head sail, of course.
Yeah, we definitely folded it. Oh, yeah, you've got to put the boat away properly first.
I'm not. I would have probably just sort of made sure it was loosely tied up and run.
Yeah, I was getting a little bit concerned, but luckily it was the weekend. The bars were open late, so we didn't miss out.
We're okay.
And whilst you're on watch, on the way down and probably on the way back, how do you keep yourself entertained when you're on deck on your own? Do you listen to music? Do you do anything like that, or
We steer?
you steer?
It can be very entertaining.
No, I had music with me, headphones, and we had a speaker. I didn't listen to music as much as I thought I would, but yeah, sometimes a bit of music, especially at night, just keeps going. I had some podcasts as well, which I would listen to on my commute. Normally, I'll listen to a lot of podcasts, but I never felt like I wanted to put one on. I was quite happy to sail in the boat.
I mean, it is an interesting one because I have had people say to me, "So, what do you do all that time when you're out there?" And I think there's a perception that there's lots of spare time. There really isn't. There really isn't any spare time because all you're doing is sleeping, steering, eating, various other bodily functions, and then and that's it. There isn't much time fixing things, and so there isn't huge amounts of spare time at all. And steering the boat can be kind of 100% concentration, particularly when it's windy. So no. But having said that, when the wind was down a little bit during the day, we would stick the speaker on. We'd have sea shanties, What are we?
Sing along, yeah.
Bit of a
singing along.
Yeah, absolutely. Genuinely we were. So, but yeah, most of the time, kind of, just sailing the boat.
And once you'd left shore, once you'd left Falmouth and all that sort of thing, did you see any of the other boats much, or was it everyone dispersed and was there was quite a distance between you all fairly early?
Well, no. So the first day we saw lots of boats, and interesting because of course we're class 4. Sorry, can you hear that, Paul?
Yeah, it's fine. Carry on. Yeah.
So no, first day we could see lots of boats, and then of course as the race wears on, you get further and further away from people, and then every now and then you'd see there'd be a boat that would kind of cross your bow. We had AZAB, which is a very fast asymmetric boat, and it came whizzing across our bow and out to the west, and then several hours later it came whizzing across our bow again, heading to the east. Not really making much progress, but we had a bit of a chuckle about that. This is a much faster boat than us, but it was really good because you could sort of pick a boat. If you could see somebody, you could sort of go and look them up on AIS, work out who it was, and then you could use that as your little bit of a push to say, hold on, they're catching us. Right, what do we need to do to go a bit quicker? And so it's actually quite a good motivational thing. If you had someone near you, and of course, even if you can't see them, you can see them on AIS to a certain extent, and so it's kind of then. And also, the other useful thing was that Pete would download, or rather would get from Yellow Brick. You can get a file which gives the position of all the boats in the race, and then that through Pete's technical trickery was able to overlay that on the kind of electronic chart. You could then see the relative positions of everybody. And we were getting that every 4 hours.
Yeah. And but it's interesting when we're here, and it's been incredibly social. Something I didn't anticipate with the short-handed aspect of the race is now between boats, everyone is so social, but and helping each other out. But when we're talking with the guys that we meet now, we say, "Which boat is it you're from?" And they say, Bombardino or whatever, then we have stories of when we were looking at them in the race, and then they have equal stories in reverse where they say, yeah, you took your kite down there, did you have a problem, and things like that. And it's incredible. We were all watching each other, and I think we were quite tight for a while, maybe because we were all in the straight line, but yeah, it's really interesting.
It's interesting to watch the tracker back as well. Certainly the last day, 2 days, there's like this peloton. People are coming in from slightly different angles, but of course, as you narrow in on the end of the island, we're all getting closer and closer together, and it's quite a funny thing to watch, really, as everybody comes in. Basically, all going. Well, that group was all going to the west of the island, so and we were kind of keeping an eye on people and thinking, are they catching? Are they catching? But no, really good.
Well, that's one for Pete's technical ability. Maybe for the future is to work out their corrected time as you go along.
Oh, that is the plan.
Yeah. and it's all data, Paul. It's all data that you can kind of use for your decision making. So if you've got one particular competitor that you're worried about, you can then, if you know where they are and how fast they're going and what they're kind of up to, you can kind of make some decisions around how you cope with that. And I mean, the amount of data we've got is huge. It's absolutely huge. Amazing.
It is brilliant. And I know people are going to want to know this. Was there much wildlife out there, or was it pretty just water and fish?
No, lots and lots of wildlife. So we must have seen, I don't know whether it's hundreds or thousands of Portuguese man of war jellyfish. And these things they can be anything from about that long to like that long, I suppose. And they have a sail. They're kind of like a fluorescent purple, aren't they, sort of thing. And they literally have they're above water, and they make progress with wind. Apparently, they have huge sort of bits below the water, almost like a great big keel. But you would see them all around you, constantly. So lots and lots of them, lots and lots of dolphins, which would come on occasions, come and play, and go across the bow and everything else like we had on the way down to Falmouth. And what did we see?
Oh yeah, we did have a whale sighting, didn't we?
We had a whale sighting. Yeah, amazing. And they were quite a long way away, but you could see the sort of plume of water as they were breathing. And there were probably 3 or 4 of them. We got close enough to be able to just about see their backs as they surfaced. But yeah, they were quite a way away. But great to see. And then lots of seabirds as well.
Fantastic. The whales must have been quite exciting.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I caught sight of the first plume of water going up out of the corner of my eye, and as I sort of focused on it, it appeared to me like it was on the horizon. And I'm thinking, if that's on the horizon, that's water has just gone several hundred feet in the air. And then it was a case of, Pete, come up and have a look at this. And it was only when we saw like the second and third one, we worked out, no, it's actually much closer, and therefore they're probably whales. But for a while, you're thinking, what on earth can that be?
It's like panic there.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see the wildlife, and you get the dolphins, pot of dolphins that go past, and there'd be birds flying around with them, and you're wondering whether the birds following the dolphins following the birds, or they were clearly all wanted fish, but you didn't know who was following who, and you start to think about these things. And I would think about it's the first time I'd seen the Portuguese man of war, so you start to think, I wonder where they're sailing to.
Yeah,
because they clearly weren't just trying to drift downwind. They're
on a mission to go somewhere. But
where
really? And why?
Yeah.
Where and why? That's the question. Yeah.
But we didn't see one thing that's about halfway through the trip. I think I said to you, I haven't seen any plastic, any big lumps of plastic or rubbish in the water. So we went a long time without seeing anything, and that was quite nice. And then towards the end of the trip, I think we each spotted a few little bits. I saw a builder's helmet just floating past.
Yeah. So kind of like a football, but a football with barnacles all the way underneath the underwater surface of it. Yeah, so it's been there quite a long time. Yeah, and just bits and pieces, but not nearly as much as maybe you would have thought you'd see, which is kind of encouraging.
That's quite nice. And it was literally, you saw the plastic sort of nearer the land. Once you're out in the middle of the ocean, it was sort of not.
Yeah, well, we were still in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
But
we're still 300 miles offshore, you know, or 200
miles.
True. So yeah.
And what's it been like since you got in? What's the Azores like? How have the people been? As you mentioned the camaraderie quite a lot, but what's it been like on the rest stop?
Well, I mean, so first of all, the climate. To be honest, you know, I think I've been sold a vision of the Azores as being this lovely, hot, sunny place where, you know, we'd get there and, you know, we'd be basking in sunshine. It really hasn't been like that. Temperatures have been absolutely fine, but maybe 17 degrees. And we've had lots of rain.
No.
So you kind of feel at home. But while you in the UK were basking in hot sunshine, we've been in here in the rain. And yesterday we went for a hike with a couple of the other competitors. I say a hike, it was a 2-hour walk, wasn't it? But we took a taxi over to the other side of the island and walked along the coast for 2 hours and then taxi back again. But while we were away doing our walk in cloudy weather and the odd bit of rain, on this side of the island, it was absolutely torrential. so as lovely as the Azores are, slightly disappointed with the weather. But it's a fantastic, really interesting place to come because obviously volcanic. We did a coach tour on Friday and went and saw various different, you know, interesting places in terms of lakes up in the hills and up in the mountains and hot springs and this sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, it is a fascinating place to come. And they kind of, if you're into your plant life, yeah, it's quite extraordinary, really, what's here.
And the people have all been welcoming and all that sort of thing.
Completely. Yeah, we've been looked after so well. It's amazing, really. So yeah,
and that,
every interesting place.
And now the important bit: what's the weather looking like for the journey back? And have you got your course in mind now?
Yeah, I think everyone started looking. I think we were all talking about it. We all said, well, let's not look till, you know, a couple of days before. But we all started looking. So our morning routine now is wake up, Ian makes the tea, and I download the weather, and we see what the route says for today. But we try not to look at it too much because it changes. But you can see every day the route changes. But the picture is quite light winds, quite large areas of essentially no wind, but we've got downwind at the moment. We've got downwind conditions all the way, but a bit more complicated picture than on the way here, and there's and still quite a lot of potential for it to change.
So the routing will all be around trying to avoid the light patches.
Yeah.
Again, it's about how accurate that data is. I mean, it is. What we found is it's really quite accurate. Certainly in terms of when you get to like a day away and 2 days away, it gets more and more accurate. But quite often you'll sort of compare the wind that you've got to what they said you were going to have, and it's quite similar. So it'll all be about avoiding those light patches. But the routing at the moment is saying 9 days, or nearly 9 days. So more of a typical passage time rather than the quick one we've done so far.
And are you all prepared now for the start tomorrow?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, we did all of our maintenance jobs pretty soon after finishing, and we're all focused. We had a big meal last night at the yacht club, and that kind of sort of signified the end of our stay here, and now we're all focused on getting ready for the start tomorrow. So we've got quite a busy day today. I've still got to go for a swim and scrub the hull, because we know that's where the 4.5 hours came from.
The water's probably slightly warmer there, I would have thought, maybe.
Yeah, so I'll still have my wetsuit on, but no, it is a little bit warmer here, and yeah, we've got to get some shopping in, and then just get all the stuff moved around so we're ready to go. We've got a race briefing as well, straight after this, I think 11. So
yeah,
yeah, it's all starting to gear up again. So
yeah, so we're getting back into race mode now. We've had relaxation mode. Now we're getting back into race mode.
And what time is your start tomorrow?
Our start, I knew you'd ask that. Our start is at 13:50 BST tomorrow.
13:50. Excellent. Well, I'll get the tracker restarted up then, just to sort of watch you as you go, as you come on through. And I need to book my trip down to Falmouth then to come and see you come in. So about the 29th or 30th works for you?
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right. Yeah.
I'll keep tracking you so I can make an emergency journey. Because I think whatever happens when you come back, you'll deserve a nice, decent. Well, you probably had very good food out there, but you deserve a decent beer and a decent meal. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And no, we certainly enjoy that. But yeah, quite a few miles to sail before we get to that point.
And all we can say from our end is good luck with that, and well, thank you very much for giving us this time today. I know you guys are busy getting the boat ready, but good luck tomorrow. Good luck on the way back, and we'll see you on your return.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers now.
Cheers.